I was really excited about the idea of starting Lent with creation. After all, Lent is a season of preparation, a time when we are reflective and attending to the needs of our faith. And what better way to start that work than with the beginning of our shared story? That excitement lasted until I sat down to reread the texts, at which point I began to question my sanity itself and why I would set myself up to try to make meaning out of the Adam and Eve story. After all, this story has been one of the primary ones used to subjugate women and as a bonus narrative of overemphasizing the duality of gender. My concerns about preaching about this led me down a line of thinking where I started to wonder if creation itself really matters to Christianity and if perhaps we would be better off just ignoring all stories of creation so that I don't have to preach on Adam and Eve. That should count as a red flag in my thinking process because my faith is at the root a creation-based faith. Creation is how I make sense of everything. The Bible starts and ends with creation. We, as people, are co-creators with God, working towards the world as God would have it be, the kingdom. Creation is sacred. The natural world is one of my best teachers. All of creation sings praises to the Creator. There is wisdom in every rock and stream and leaf. This is how I think. This is who I am. I myself learned how deeply all of this is ingrained when my beloved 2-year-old spent last summer curiously pulling leaves and flowers off of living things, while I found myself assessing the health of the plant and inserting myself between him and any plant I deemed likely to be hurt by the loss of a single leaf. The lectures that came out of my mouth about respecting all living creation were an excellent clue as to what I believe, although, as you might expect, not terribly convincing to the one who heard them. So, what to do with creation stories? And before anyone gets too concerned listening to me, this seems like a prime time to talk about how great science is. To take a creation story seriously is not to assume it is factual about history and science. It is to consider it as a meaning-making narrative and look for clues as to what it was trying to explain and why. I am deeply committed to understanding God as creator. It is inseparable from my faith and my worldview. But I believe God created through the Big Bang and continued to create through evolution and continues to create today along with us and beyond us. For me, to claim God as creator isn't about denying science. It's about believing that there is a sacredness in all that is, and that goodness is possible because God is the root of all being. But what to do about creation stories? All right, well, I guess we take them as they are. Stories, meant to help us understand the challenges of life, and we listen for their wisdom. And of course, the Bible has a multitude of creation stories because the Bible is working to make meaning, and creation stories are particularly good at that. Phyllis Triple starts the book God and the Rhetoric of Sexuality with the words, "The Bible is a pilgrim wandering through history to merge past and present." Looking at creation stories is the same as looking at the rest of the Bible. To make sense of it for the present requires some sense of how it might be meant in the past, but also a firm grounding in the present to see what it means now. So, as creation narratives go, Psalm 104 is one of my favorites. It seems to focus on goodness and majesty of creation, a theme I like. It focuses on God's presence within creation, another theme I like. And best of all, Psalm 104 presents God as active in caring for creation and for the goodness of creation itself, us included. It serves as a reminder to be grateful for water, which brings life, for grass, which sustains cattle, for edible plants we get to eat, and wine and water and bread to satisfy people. If Psalm 104 does all of this while having a few weird conceptions about what the sky is and some odd ideas about punishment, I can let it be because I need those reminders of awe and care and hope that I hear in the text. However, as creation narratives go, Genesis 2 is probably my least favorite. To be fair, though, I dislike the text because of what others have done with it more than because of the text itself. So I forced myself to actually listen to it, and as always happens, it turns out to be way more interesting and life-giving than I expected. Dr. Gaffney says of the first created human in this story that it is an entity that will be divided into equal halves to form two human persons, yielding different theological implications than turning a man's rib into a woman. She's working on an interpretation from Phyllis Tribble, which I'd like to point out was published in 1978 and continues to be one of the best texts on the subject. In Tribble's translation of this Genesis creation story, we start with, "And Yahweh God formed Ha-Adam of dust from Ha-Adamah and breathed into its nostrils the breath of life, and Ha-Adam became a living nephesh." From the beginning, Tribble says, Ha-Adam is the focus of God's pleasure. She translates Ha-Adam as earth creature, as it is a pun on the word for earth, and points out that the earth creature is not identified sexually. Rather, the earth creature is precisely and only the human being, so far sexually undifferentiated. Further, only two ingredients constitute its life, and both are tenuous: dusty earth and divine breath. One from above, one from below, one visible, one invisible. And here I start to get a sense of the meaning the early storytellers were trying to get to. They wondered about this fragile reality called life. They noticed that we are interrelated with Earth, but also more, at least while we are alive. These metaphors for what we are make a lot of sense if you're thinking meaning making and not science. Now, if you're listening to what the text says and not assuming that the earth creature is man. Now, if we were to pick one point from this story as the key thing that should be taken from it, I would pick the line, "It is not good for the earth creature to be alone," which, as Tribble says, contrasts wholeness with isolation. And please note that this is said while the earth creature is still one. So it's not about romantic or sexual love, but a need for companionship and relationship. And God has been quite present with the earth creature to this point, and it really seems that God rather likes the earth creature, but God still senses that the earth creature is made for relationship with other earth creatures too. And dear ones, that I think holds throughout time. Tribble says, since the earth creature is not only part of the earth, but also other than the earth, it needs fulfillment from that which is other than the earth. And I've got to say, that just feels right. And she points out that the actual phrase attributed to God here is, "I will make a companion corresponding to it." Now, if you have a word other than companion in your head, particularly one with a hierarchical basis, please know that that is not fair to the Hebrew the story is told in. Tribble explains, according to Yahweh God, what the earth creature needs is a companion, one who is neither subordinate nor superior, one who alleviates isolation through identity. So then God makes the animals and they don't fit, which reflects a God who is flexible and working out with the earth creature what that one needs, right? Also a lovely metaphor. And then God tries something else. Tribble says, in becoming material for creation, the earth creature changes character. Whereas the making of plants and animals were divine acts, extrinsic to the earth creature itself, the making of the sexes is intrinsic. Indeed, this act has altered the very flesh of the creature, from one become two. After this intrinsic division, Ha-Adam is no longer identical with its past, so that the next time it speaks, a different creature is speaking. And here's what it says. And Ha-Adam said, this finally is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. This shall be called woman, because from man was taken this. And apparently the final this, the female pronoun zot, unmistakably emphasizes the woman whose creation has made the earth creature different. Only after surgery does this creature, for the very first time, identify itself as male. No ambiguity clouds the words issa and is, woman and man. One is female, the other male. Their creation is simultaneous, not sequential. Moreover, one is not the opposite of the other. The very act of distinguishing female from male. The earth creature describes her as bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. These words speak unity, solidarity, mutuality, and equality. Accordingly, in this poem, the man does not depict himself as prior to or superior to the woman. For both of them, sexuality originates in the one flesh of humanity. And I am going to take this a step further and say that this story, in fact, claims that the first earth creature was not gendered. Non-binary, perhaps. And that humanity comes before gender, sex, or sexuality. The human experience is primary. The human need for relationship is primary. This story seems to try to figure out not just where we came from, but what relationships we're supposed to have with God, with the earth, with plants and animals, and with each other. And while we're at it, it's trying to figure out the pull of sexuality and the power of new love, the form of families, the role of gender, and what makes humans unique, which is a lot to try to answer for one story. It's more than the Big Bang tries to pull off. The Bible gives us multiple creation stories. I think that means we're supposed to take seriously the sacredness of creation, but not fuss over the details presented in each one. But we have these stories to help us make sense of the big questions of life. Some of the answers are going to work for us, some won't. It's okay to take what brings life and leave the rest. For me, today, I like the idea of being an earth creature with divine breath. I appreciate reminders of awe and beauty, and the reminders that say that I was made for relationships. And that's why they matter so much to me. What will I do with creation stories? Savor them.